Hello, this is Noah, and welcome back out on the stretch. And I had a thought to share with you guys, and also something I was going to the Lord about in prayer of, Lord, help me to see clearly. And I had a conversation last week with a friend of mine, and he has a business, and he's in the city, and the business and tenants above him, through neglect, once in a while, pipes would break and water would come through the ceiling into his area. Well, what used to be sort of like a rare occasion has now become monthly and weekly, to the point where he was saying, look, I now come to expect this, and this is just normal, and I don't even want to replace the ceiling tiles because so many times it just leaks within a day or two of doing that, and I suffer a loss. And because of the laws and structures of the area, his hands are tied and really can't do anything. And I thought about that with the Lord, and walking away from that conversation, and being in the city so long, of just, God, does that happen to us? Does that happen to you and I, of spiritual things, of Lord, what used to grieve us, what used to be considered a burden, or even just what we'd be in shock and like this is not normal, has now become so routine and a part of our daily lives, unfortunately. It's the reality, but it's not normal. And you can see tourists when they come, of just the crazy driving, the guy who's strung out and yelling in the streets, and how they observe these things and react to it. It's not normal for where they're coming from. But you might be in a town of 10,000 or less, and you see how things have changed, and the moral rot, the way things have changed in the last 20, 30 years, and economic depravity and hopelessness. So it's not any longer just a big city issue. And thank God there are pockets in our country that aren't just the standard quo of the rest of the places. But there is definitely a change, and there's been challenges and division in our country from the genesis of America. But the division wasn't always like this. The division in the church was not always to this degree. And just, again, it's not normal for the confusion for our children to not know the left and the right. But through time, have we become desensitized to it? Through time, have we become desensitized to the lawlessness that was not normal? The violence in our streets was not always like this. Like, I remember even as a kid, like, we knew our neighbors, and we could go out and play and spend all day, and we didn't have phones. And if there were no text messaging, and you wouldn't talk to someone for 8 to 12 hours, and that was okay, and there wasn't concern over that. But things have changed, and what now is normal was not always like this. And I bring that up because there's times where I've had to go to the Lord, and it's reminded me of the man in Mark 8 when Jesus is healing the blind man, and he asks him, can you see anything now? And the man looked around and said, yes, I see people, but I can't see them very clearly. They look like trees walking around. And that's happened to me over time, and I want to encourage you, if you're becoming kind of just dull and desensitized to just, again, what's become familiar, unfortunately, but should not be normal, to go to the Lord and say, God, I see people, but I see them now more as trees than I did before. What used to grieve me, and what still grieves the heart of God, is no longer much of a concern, and I'm growing numb. And go to the Lord. Ask Him, God, are my children on these video games that are making them desensitized? Am I watching stuff on TV, or just the news that constantly promotes the negativity? And it unfortunately is, to some degree, the reality. But if we're not careful, we become so cold to things. And the verse in Matthew chapter 24, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall grow cold. And if we're not in the last days, and lawlessness is abounding, there is no doubt about that. And it wasn't always like this. Just the lack of accountability, the lack of our leaders taking responsibility and acting like children. Yes, has there always been a measure of that to some degree, but not like this. And so I want to encourage you today, Christian, if you're feeling like, Lord, I am seeing men as trees, but I can't see them very clearly. Thank God this blind man was honest enough with the Lord, and it's always the honest and hungry heart that gets the victory. And he walked away from this experience and encounter with Jesus having the total victory. And you and I can go to the Lord today and get in His presence and say, God, the love that I have for my community, for my neighbor, it is growing cold. And just be honest with Him, and He'll give you and I direction of what we can do to change things. We might not be able to change policies, and we're not trying to boil the whole ocean at once, but we can start one cup at a time. And I also, a good practical step that's helped me at times, and I encourage you to do this if you're not already, to write a few things down that you're thankful for, to say, God, I'm grateful for the meal that I have, or the people that are in my life. I'm grateful that I can raise my hands and give you thanks. There's a great portion in the book, The Hiding Place, where Corey ten Boom, the conditions are miserable, and it's one of the worst concentration camps they've been in. And there's these horrible fleas, and her sister says, thank God for the fleas. And Corey's like, are you kidding me? But she does. She begins to say, God, thank you for the fleas. And there was a reason for it if you haven't read the book. The fleas were so bad in this concentration camp that the guards wouldn't even come in, and they were allowed to do a Bible study. So God, who is not favorites with people and does not show favoritism to generations, can give you and I new eyes to see. And if Corey ten Boom can be grateful for the fleas, I think you and I can choose something to be thankful for too, rather than just focusing on the bad, and even just the people in our own lives that will try to get you and I to be distracted and focused on the things that would just really just begin to bring spiritual dullness into our lives. And also, this Memorial Day weekend, I want to say thank you so much to any serviceman or woman who might watch this in the future. Thank you so much. I'm praying for you guys. Until next time, see you out on the stretch.